back to another video on the Vaterra Ascender. This one getting transformed into a Class 1 Sorca Unimog truck. Now, if you don't know what any of those terms mean, go check out my last video on this project, which was kind of an overview of what Sorca is, what Class 1 is, and where I'm going with this vehicle. Now, since that video, I have swapped on a set of the Pitbull 155 Growlers. Now, the reason I went with the 155 version is because they are under the height limit that Class 1 requires. They're actually stretched onto a 1.9 plastic wheel at the moment. Probably not going to stay that way, or definitely not going to stay that way. For now, though, these tires are what are holding its place. The offset on these wheels is actually a little bit too small, and they actually do rub against the knuckles. All that'll get changed down the road. I just needed something to get on there to get mocked up for size. Now, what we're going to do is we're really going to start changing this truck around right away. Because this is going to be a custom project and things like that, I'm not going to bother with really trying to go slow and step, all that type of thing in here. So let's go through exactly what we're going to get done. First of all, if you guys don't know what a Unimog is, you'll have to kind of try and look something up like that. This is the cab from the Tamiya Unimog body. There was a full box on it. I cut all that off. All I'm interested in is the cab. The rest of this truck will get a full custom tube bed, basically. Pretty minimal to try and keep weight down and things like that, but we'll get into all that later. Now, with using just the cab, you can see that right now that transmission and motor and everything is just kind of hanging out there in the bed. Now, we could easily disguise that with some covers and tube work and things like that, but that's not the route that I really wanted to go. What we're going to do is we're going to use this kit from Gcm Racing. Now, Gcm is a small company out of Canada, ran by a couple of guys up there, and do some really nice stuff. I did an interview with them in Pennsylvania at the RC4 Drive event, but had some audio issues and was never able to get that thing posted. Now, this is their forward motor mount kit. Basically everything you need. It takes and relocates that whole transmission to the very front of the truck using this plate, and then you use an adapter here that you see to bolt on their transfer case in the center of that truck to give you a real full-scale style motor up front to a center transfer case and then splitting to the front and rear axles. Now, also since the last video you saw, I have done a couple of upgrades. I have installed the Vaterra HD gear set into the front and rear axle, as well as installed half of the MIP drive shaft upgrade. Now, I say half because I knew I was going to be doing this specific upgrade. So I didn't put the center section of that upgrade in. So I still have those two pieces of the MIP upgrade here to install when I do this part of the upgrade. Now, as well as that forward motor mount kit, we also have the Vaterra rear axle link adjuster. This helps you adjust the link geometry just a little bit, hopefully making this thing climb a little bit better. As I do plan to use this thing in competition, I do want this thing to perform the best it can. So, going to run this thing on there, see how that helps. Right now we've got the stock links kind of adjusted in length a little bit to try and get us a ballpark of where we're going to run this. We're not going to run it in the longest wheelbase. When we do replace the links on this car, I'm going to do a full stainless link upgrade from RC4x4 Performance. You can find them on Facebook, and I'll also put a link to them in the description of here. Matt and Bill over there will be offering a full set of links for the Vaterra. They offered me up one here as well. Tweaked just a little bit for some of those specific parts that I plan on running. Lastly, while I'm going through this truck, I ran it a handful of times, but just to be careful, I'm going to install a full set of Fast Eddie's bearings that I picked up for this truck just to make sure everything is in tip top. I did run it in water the last couple of times that I ran it, and I didn't really take any care of it after that, so I just want to make sure that everything's in the best shape that it can, so I'm starting the season right, and that usually means swapping out a full set of bearings. With that said, I'm going to start digging into this thing and see what we can get done tonight. After we get it all buttoned up, I'll make sure to do a little overview on it, show you guys exactly what our final outcome was. With that, I'm going to start tearing into this. The install on the whole GCM kit went pretty smoothly. I want to get a close-up here, spin you guys around it, and show you exactly what we're working with. Right now, I do have some links in the mock-up stage, meaning that they're not fully threaded in, things like that. So some of these things you'll just have to kind of ignore and know that they will be done right once I get this truck set up exactly how I like. But let's get in there and take a good look at what we got accomplished. What we see here in the front is this new anodized black motor plate, along with the tabs that allow it to be bolted in with the shock bolts that come through the outside. There used to be an aluminum spreader bar in there to keep those shock mounts nice and rigid. this thing gets rid of that setup. Now, since there's only 2 attachment points up here, a third point is captured with the transmission down here on the back side of the shock tower. You run a longer countersink bolt through the back side of the shock tower into the bottom side of the transmission where one of the original bolts went through the skid plate and into it. From there, you can see this intermediate shaft that comes out of the back of the transmission down into the Gcm transfer case. Now, this transfer case is basically 2 halves that have 2 20-tooth 32-pitch pinion gears inside. Pretty simple construction and nothing too crazy there. What you see is actually the bottom side of the transfer case if you were typically used to seeing one. It flips in and then is bolted into this adapter piece, which bolts in through the bottom of the skid plate like you would normally think. This adapter piece also has this other groove over here, which if you look at their other pictures is actually for a micro servo to run the 2-speed shift mechanism if you were going to transform the stock transmission setup into the 2-speed from the twin hammers. Nothing that I'm probably going to do with this car, being that I'm mostly interested in running it as a competition type crawler. But for now, that is the basic setup. Again, I do have the MIP drive shafts going front and rear. The last piece from Gcm I installed is this rear upper link riser, hopefully to help this thing climb just a little bit better. We'll see exactly how much that helps once I'm able to get this thing out onto the rocks. After installing that kit though, I did really kind of go through and basically just remove the rest of the components that I had installed on this chassis, being that fuel cell in the rear that had my receiver and BEC inside, as well as the ESC that sat on this little pad here in the back. I got rid of all of those things because I'm probably not going to keep those in the rear. Those are probably going to come up front and be underneath of the Unimog cab. Now, one thing is that this forward motor mount setup would normally really help you with more interior space inside of your car, because normally this would be the engine compartment area. Not so much the case with a Unimog though, because if I put the Unimog pretty much where I was hoping to run it, that motor is sitting pretty high and right about in the middle of where this cab is now. So it's definitely going to take some custom interior fabrication to try and fake in an interior on this thing to try and give me the depth that I want to see visually with what this cab would require. It's going to take some work around. We're going to kind of hide this stuff as much as we can so that you don't see all of that. But that is stuff that isn't going to be too big of a deal for something like this. We can make it pretty simple and kind of sell that idea. With that said, that's all we got for this one. Pretty nice little clean install here, and I think that in the end it's really going to help the overall Unimog look that we're going to get out of this car. Watch for more videos to come on this thing, as I've got a bunch of other option parts on the way from Vaterra. We've got the Knuckles C-hubs, their upgraded shock set, as well as their brass disc brake style setup that functions as a knuckle weight. Granted, that is not available or not allowable to use in Sorca competitions, but I do want to show you guys what it looks like anyway and show you the functionality that it would add if you weren't looking to really compete in those Sorca events. But with that and with this project where it's at tonight, I'm going to call it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.